What's the good word, y'all? DKB here. So the Rex Ryan family is making some noise in the NFL on a day where we ultimately see the Chiefs win another Super Bowl. We get the news that Rex Ryan is interviewing with the Broncos for Sean Payton's defensive coordinator. He looks like he's appearing to build an extremely strong staff over there. So I'm definitely staying tuned in on what's happening there because the Broncos could become the threat we were expecting this season and ultimately another roadblock in the path to us trying to achieve a playoff entrance, especially where we're seeing Mahomes, who looks like some kind of robot Terminator quarterback sent from the future to come and give hell to us. Essentially the AFC Championship's gatekeeper. I'm not quite sure how any defense is really going to be able to get past him, but I feel confident with Sauce Gardner in our corner. But regardless of all that, Rex Ryan interviewing with the Broncos. We have his son, Seth Ryan, who we got confirmation the New York Jets are requesting an interview with from the Detroit Lions staff. And I actually find this one is a bit of a great move. I was curious how long it was going to take us to start trying to fill some of these positions. We got Keith Carter in at offensive line. Seth Ryan potentially will replace Austin Miles. And then we still are looking for our senior offensive assistant position or whatever that ultimately ends up getting titled to help Nathaniel Hackett out. And I would still even potentially say quarterback coach. I mean, I know they plan on keeping Rob Calabrese there, so maybe they keep him glued to Hackett's, hip and hope that he can develop behind him with what we've seen. But for Seth Ryan, the kid's young, 28 to 29. He's gotten about 5 years of experience under him already. As we mentioned, he's been the Lions' assistant wide receiver coach. So this will be an actual upgrade for them at that position if he does end up getting hired with us, which also means that the Lions won't be able to negate us from hiring him since they already have a man in place. And unless he's going to be due for an upgrade himself to like an offensive coordinator role or some kind of a senior coach position, title, something like that, who knows? You can make up anything in the NFL. It's unlikely that we don't get our hands on him if we actually want him. So what are some other things, right? He spent 4 years with the Chargers initially, 2 years as a coaching intern, 2 years as an offensive quality control coach. So we see that he has the pedigree there with the coaching staff that they've had. Just kind of narrowly missing out on playoffs during that tenure with them. And then we see him ultimately end up with the Detroit Lions over the last 2 seasons. One of the things that I love the most, and it's one of the quiet perks of, having Brant Boyer on our staff, we've seen him survive, 3 or 4 coaches. And I think that really speaks to the job that not only is he capable of doing, but he's also a man that can verbally explain why he would be useful to a new coaching staff that, for the most part, usually will have no ties to anybody that's currently in place. Seth Ryan was able to survive the last regime, and Dan Campbell decided to keep him on the staff. And it seemed like a good move. We're talking career seasons for Amon-Ra St. Brown and Khalif Raymond. Josh Reynolds had one of the best seasons that he's had in terms of receiving yards in the NFL. And then, statistic-wise, we've seen the Lions in terms of the DVOA statistics. They finished 5th in passing, and then they were 8th in passing yards per game. So I wanted to see exactly how well and how potent the wide receivers were as a part of an offense that did bolster TJ Hawkinson for a bit. And then, as mentioned, we did see Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's been blossoming, but they also do have some running backs that contribute in the receiving game as well. So, 23 touchdowns in 2021 as an offensive staff grouping. 13 of those were by wide receivers. And in comparison, this season, they scored 29 touchdowns. 13 again of those were by wide receivers. So you can look at it and say that the offense has been more potent and the wide receivers have still been able to produce and provide a significant enough impact there, especially during a time where we've seen Jared Goff find more chemistry late season with the tight ends as opposed to what was happening with the wide receivers. But again, we're talking career years for two of the wide receivers. Some of the other things were most of the wide receivers saw an increase in their catch percentage, and there were at least 5 games where there was a wide receiver that scored, caught enough balls for 100-plus yards. There was even multiple games of, wide receivers catching multiple touchdowns in the game. So I look at that and I see a young guy, innovative. We see that the offensive personnel that the Detroit Lions employed were able to take the next step. They didn't even really have a hindrance whatsoever when you go back and look at the fact that they did trade T.J. Hawkinson pretty early by the time the trade deadline passed. So I don't know. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are. I mean, I know the knock on the New York Jets has been that we've been holding down a young, coaching staff for quite some time, or at least one that's inexperienced, I should say. And maybe this doesn't help that situation, but I think when you pull in a bunch of young, bright-minded guys from a bunch of different areas, and I would have definitely loved to pick up quite a few people from this Detroit Lions coaching staff. I'm hoping we could still maybe pluck somebody from the Eagles as well. Maybe, Eric Bieniemy, I was thinking was a good option at one point for our offensive coordinator position. If he still wants to try to get an upgrade and make himself a more valuable head coach, maybe we can look to him for our senior assistant on the offensive coaching staff, whatever it is. That's a topic for a whole nother conversation. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Rex Ryan's son, Seth Ryan, interviewing for our wide receiver coach position, I think is a smart and good move for us based on what I've seen the last 2 years with the Lions. And appreciate you guys. I'll catch you again. Peace.